I remember the exact moment I stopped being their daughter and became their burden. It wasn't loud. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just silence. Cold, thick silence that lingered even when the room was full of laughter that never included me. My name is Brielle Hartman, and the day my father called me a complication was the day something inside me shifted forever. It was my sister's engagement dinner. The kind that belonged on the cover of a lifestyle magazine, white roses, gold trim, champagne flutes sparkling like chandeliers under the garden lights. Everyone looked like they belonged. Except me. I wasn't even officially invited. My sister, Chloe, sent a text the morning of the event. "If you're free, swing by. Wear something neutral." Neutral. That was always the unspoken rule. Don't outshine. Don't speak too much. Don't take up space. I wore beige. I stood in the back, clutching a glass of sparkling water like it was armor. The toasts had already started when I arrived. My parents were front and center, raising their glasses to Chloe and her fiancé, Mitchell, who, by the way, once told me at Thanksgiving that women who chose careers over family died lonelier. He was perfect for her. My father's voice boomed through the garden speakers. "Chloe has always been our star, graceful, brilliant, everything a daughter should be. And now she's marrying into a family that truly understands her worth." People clapped. I didn't. Then came my mother's turn. She's always made us proud. Never gave us trouble, always stayed on track. Not like some who wander. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. I felt every pair of eyes glance toward me, subtle but sharp. Like I was the footnote to Chloe's fairy tale. Later that night, I overheard my parents talking to Mitchell's mother near the dessert table. They didn't know I was behind the hedge. "She's still figuring things out," my dad said. "Creative types, you know. Always floating." It's been a challenge, frankly. "Has she ever held a real job?" the woman asked. "She's complicated," he replied. "Not gifted. Not independent. Not driven. Complicated." As if I were a problem to manage. A blemish on the family portrait. I left without saying goodbye. I walked 2 miles home in heels that blistered my feet. But the ache in my chest hurt far more. That night, I sat in my tiny studio apartment and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was awake. Something had snapped, but not in a destructive way. It was like a lock had opened. For years, I'd bent myself to fit into their mold, quieted my voice, hid my ambition, softened my edges. But not anymore. They had written me off. Now it was my turn to write a new ending. And when I was done, they wouldn't just remember my name. They'd depend on it. After that night, I disappeared from their lives at least. No calls. No texts. No pop-ins at family brunch. I let their world spin without me, and they didn't even notice I was gone. But in the background, I was moving in silence. I poured all the bitterness into something they never understood, my work. For years, I had dabbled in design, branding for friends, sketching mock-ups, helping a local boutique refresh their storefront. Nothing real in my parents' eyes. To them, if it didn't come with a 401k and a cubicle, it wasn't a job. It was a hobby. But I saw it differently now. This wasn't a side hustle anymore. This was my weapon. I took freelance gigs from every corner of the internet, ugly logos, boring brochures, broken websites. I fixed them all. Slowly, clients came back. They told others. My inbox began to fill with words like, "I've heard about your work. A friend said you saved her launch. Can you help me build a brand from scratch?" I worked 14-hour days, fueled by instant coffee and spite. While Chloe posted curated selfies in wedding gowns and champagne brunches, I taught myself digital marketing. While Dad closed deals in country clubs, I pitched to struggling local shops trying to survive. I didn't need their praise. I needed progress. And progress came in small, golden moments. My first client referral. My first $1,000 invoice paid without negotiation. The first time someone said, "You saved my business." No one clapped. No one raised a glass. But I wrote it all down in a notebook I titled "Receipts They'll Never See." One day, I got an email from a startup founder in Chicago. She had seen one of my Instagram posts about brand identity and loved the way I described storytelling through visuals. "We're launching something big," she wrote. "We want your voice on our brand." I blinked at the screen, rereading it twice. That project became my biggest yet, a rebranding for a female-founded app designed to support working mothers. It wasn't just profitable. It was personal. When we launched, it made headlines on 2 women-led business platforms. One article mentioned my name in bold. Creative Director, Brielle Hartman. I stared at the screen for a long time. For years, they called me confused, unstable, unfocused. But now, strangers were calling me something else. Essential. I didn't reply to my parents' texts when they started trickling in again, first cautiously, then with growing curiosity. "Saw your name online, looks impressive. We should catch up soon. Chloe's bridal shower is next month. Any chance you can help Mitchell's firm with a pitch deck?" Funny how quickly complicated becomes valuable. I left them on read. Because I wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. I had more to build. I didn't want to go. I sat in the driver's seat outside the event hall, hands gripping the steering wheel, telling myself I could turn around right now and no one would care. No one would even notice. But that's the thing about old wounds, they don't close if you keep hiding them. Sometimes you have to face the people who cut you, just to remind them you're still standing. So I walked into my sister's bridal shower, not as the forgotten child or the afterthought. I walked in as Brielle Hartman, the woman they overlooked until it was too late. The venue was decorated like a Pinterest dream, blush florals, floating candles, monogrammed cupcakes. Chloe stood in the center of it all, glowing and grinning, dressed in white lace like she was already on the altar. The room buzzed with a kind of manic energy. It wasn't joy. It was performance. She spotted me and waved like I was a distant cousin, not the sister she'd grown up with. "Oh my gosh, Brie, you made it." I gave a polite smile. "You texted 3 times. I figured I was expected." Her grin stiffened for a moment, then smoothed. "Well, you know how these things are. Gotta keep up appearances." Appearances. That was always Chloe's domain. A few women from the event gathered around us, giggling as they introduced themselves, event planners, boutique owners, influencers who didn't create anything but somehow always stayed relevant. One of them, a tall woman with frosted pink nails, looked at me curiously. "I've heard your name before," she said. "You're the brand strategist, right?" "June Wright or June Wright Studio," I corrected gently. "We do brand development and strategic visuals." Her brows lifted. "Right, I read about you in her Hustle Weekly." "That's yours." I nodded. "All mine." For a split second, Chloe's smile cracked. She hadn't known. She hadn't read it. And for once, she was behind. Later, as guests were sipping mimosas and taking selfies under the flower arch, Chloe pulled me aside. "You could have told me," she said flatly. "Told you what?" "That your little business took off. You never asked." Her eyes narrowed. "Look, I'm happy for you. Really. But don't use my event to." "To what?" "Exist." I cut in, voice calm. "I didn't bring up my work. Your friends did." She looked away, then muttered, "You always have to make it about you." I smiled then. Not wide, not cruel, just enough. "Funny," I said. "You used to say I was invisible." She didn't respond. And in that silence, I knew. She felt it. The shift. The slow, quiet pull of attention turning away from her toward me. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was the spark. And I had a whole fire to build. A week after the bridal shower, I got an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject line: "Proposal for collaboration. Hartman Holdings." I stared at the name. Hartman Holdings. My father's firm. I hadn't spoken to him in over 6 months. No calls. No explanations. Just this email, clinical, efficient, as if we were strangers on opposite ends of a negotiation table. The message was brief. "We're looking to rebrand our subsidiary property group before expansion. Your firm has come highly recommended. If interested, let's set a meeting. Thomas Hartman." No, "Hi, Brielle." No, "Hope you're well." Just an olive branch dipped in formality. At first, I almost deleted it. But something inside me hesitated. Was this just business? Or was it the beginning of something else? I forwarded it to my assistant, Emily, and told her to schedule the meeting, but not in his office. If he wanted my expertise, he could come to me. The following week, my father walked into my studio for the first time. I watched his eyes scan the space, brick walls, clean minimalist layout, calm energy humming through the place like steady current. His suit looked out of place here. He didn't say hello. He didn't apologize. He sat down across from me and opened a folder like we were two executives meeting over quarterly reports. "Your work has gained traction," he said. I noticed. I'll be honest. We need fresh positioning. Young buyers aren't responding to our current branding. I leaned back. "And what made you think I'm the solution?" He paused, and for a brief second, I saw something I hadn't seen in him since I was a child. Not pride. Not respect. Uncertainty. "You know our family voice. You understand the market. It makes sense." "No," I said quietly. "What makes sense is hiring someone you didn't spend 10 years ignoring." He flinched subtly, but enough. "You don't have to work with us," he replied. "I know," I said. "But you came anyway." I didn't say yes. Not right away. Instead, I handed him a rate sheet. Premium. Non-negotiable. The same price I gave clients who tried to undervalue me. He studied the numbers, then looked up. "This is steep." "So is pretending I was never part of your family," I said with a smile. We ended the meeting in silence. But I knew the message had landed. They didn't just need help. They needed me. And I was no longer asking for a seat at their table. I was charging rent. The contract was signed by the end of the week. My team was stunned. Emily actually paused mid-sentence when she read the signature line. Thomas Hartman, CEO. Underneath it, mine, Brielle Hartman, Creative Director. He didn't even request edits. Didn't blink at the rate. Just signed and wired the deposit. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes, it hums in the silence when a man who once dismissed you now pays you without question. But I wasn't doing this for the check. I was doing it for the lesson. The rebrand meetings started the following Monday. I made sure every touchpoint felt professional, but never warm. No soft smiles. No lingering glances at the past. Just business. They tried small talk. "How's the studio space working for you?" "It's profitable," I answered flatly. "Still doing all your own design?" "I built the system. Now I manage the team." Every answer was a mirror held up to the version of me they chose to ignore. And now, they were paying to look. Chloe showed up to the third meeting uninvited, dragging Mitchell behind her like a shiny accessory. She sat at the conference table, crossing her legs like she was settling in for entertainment. "I told Dad we needed a woman's eye," she said, flipping through the mock-ups I'd brought. I didn't flinch. "I'm not a woman's eye. I'm the expert you hired." She blinked, caught off guard. Mitchell cleared his throat. "So you're really running the whole thing now, huh?" I smiled. "No, Mitchell. I'm building it. Running it comes later." He went quiet. By the fourth session, the design direction was locked. I'd created something sharp, modern, bold, the kind of identity Hartman Holdings had never dared to explore. My father pulled me aside after the meeting. "You know," he said slowly, "I wasn't sure about this in the beginning. But you've proven yourself." I turned toward him. "I never had to. You just had to open your eyes." His face tightened, but he didn't argue. Because he knew. That day, I walked out of the boardroom with a portfolio case in my hand and power in my step. They had all seen it. Not just the branding. The transformation. I wasn't Brielle the burden anymore. I was the architect of the empire they thought they owned. And the best part? This was only halftime. The emails started subtly. A developer requesting changes that had already been approved. A junior executive asking for deliverables ahead of deadline, things outside the original scope. A passive-aggressive note from Mitchell about simplifying the design so older investors don't feel alienated. At first, I let it slide. But by the third week, it became clear. They weren't used to a woman leading the show, especially not one who shared their last name but not their loyalty. So I drew a line. I scheduled a meeting not in their glass-walled office, but at my studio. No excuses. No soft cushions of familiarity. They arrived 15 minutes late. Mitchell walked in first, acting like he owned the place. Chloe followed, faking charm. My father came in last, adjusting his cufflinks like it was all beneath him. I stood, calm but direct. We need to realign on boundaries, I said before anyone had the chance to speak. I laid out the contract on the table. These are the terms you signed. If anyone in your team has trouble following them, we can dissolve the contract. Silence. Mitchell scoffed. You'd walk away? After all this. I looked him square in the eyes. I've walked away from worse. I'm not afraid of losing a deal. I'm only afraid of losing respect. My father shifted in his seat. There's no need for drama. This isn't drama, I said evenly. This is professionalism. Something your team seems to lack. I could feel Chloe's eyes narrowing, but she didn't speak. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was revelation. They were used to negotiating with people who needed them. But I didn't. They needed me. Because behind all their resources, their reputation, their polished image was a dying brand. A hollow name struggling to stay relevant. And the woman they called complicated was the only one who could save it. They didn't fire back. They couldn't. Because they knew if I walked, the image they'd built would crumble with it. After they left, I stood in the middle of my studio, feeling not just taller, but heavier with clarity. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rewriting the legacy. They had spent decades building a castle on sand. Now I was the tide. 2 days after that meeting, I got a call I didn't expect. It was from my mother. Not a text. Not a forwarded invite. An actual phone call, the first in over a year. For a moment, I just stared at the screen as it rang. She was the quiet one. The one who never said anything cruel outright, but always knew how to withhold approval like it was currency. I answered, curious more than anything. Brielle, she said, her voice smooth but cautious. I heard the meeting got tense. I leaned back in my chair. You heard right. A pause. I just wanted to say, she continued, I know this hasn't been easy. And your father, well, he can be rigid. But it's good to see you succeeding. We're proud of you. I didn't respond right away, because I wasn't sure what part to believe, the words or the timing. You're proud now? I asked softly. Or just proud that the firm isn't falling apart? There was silence. She sighed. It's complicated. No, I replied. It's finally very clear. She didn't argue. Instead, she said something I never thought I'd hear from her. I should have spoken up more. For you. I let him lead everything, and I didn't fight for my own voice, or yours. That landed harder than anything else. Because for the first time, I realized she hadn't just been silent for me, she'd been silent for herself too. Maybe that's why I always felt invisible. She had been invisible too. I'm not asking for anything, she said. Just, maybe next time there's a family gathering, you won't feel like a guest. My throat tightened, but I held firm. I'll think about it. Because I wasn't ready to forget everything. But maybe, I was beginning to understand the shape of it. That night, I went for a walk. No headphones. Just the sounds of the city, my heels clicking softly on the sidewalk. I passed a billboard, one of the new campaigns I'd designed for Hartman Holdings. My branding. My concept. My name behind it all. And suddenly, it hit me. They'd built an empire without me. Now they couldn't move forward without me. And for once, that wasn't sad. It was just. The morning the press release went out, my phone didn't stop buzzing for hours. Hartman Holdings relaunches under new brand direction, led by creative visionary Brielle Hartman. My name wasn't buried in the fine print. It was in the headline. Front and center. Exactly where I had never been in my family's world until now. What started as a quiet freelance hustle was now the voice behind one of the most high-profile rebrands in the state. Business Insiders reposted it. A few local networks called asking for interviews. Even a podcast I admired reached out with. We'd love to feature the woman rewriting what it means to lead after being left out. I stared at that line for a long time. Left out. They nailed it. I accepted. The recording studio was dimly lit, intimate. The host, a poised woman named Layla, welcomed me with warm eyes and sharp questions. Tell me what it felt like, she asked, to walk into a boardroom run by the people who once treated you like a side note, knowing they now need your ideas to survive? I didn't flinch. It felt like stepping into a story I wasn't supposed to be part of, I said. And then rewriting the ending. The conversation was raw. Real. I didn't hide the history, but I didn't drown in it either. I spoke about silence, dismissal, and the quiet kind of betrayal that wears a smile. But I also spoke about building, creating, and choosing not to shrink just because others were too small to see you. When the episode aired, it went viral. And then the invitations poured in from women's leadership panels, branding conferences, even a TEDx talk. That one made me pause. Because that stage, that was the kind of platform my father never believed I could stand on. And now, I wasn't just standing. I was inviting others up with me. The day I walked onto that TEDx stage, I wore a deep maroon suit, hair swept up, no notes in my hand. I didn't need them. The lights hit my face. The silence stretched. And then I spoke. They told me I was too sensitive, too emotional, too much. What they didn't realize was that everything they tried to suppress was everything I'd used to rise. The applause was thunderous, but it wasn't for revenge. It was for reclamation. And I wasn't done yet. Chloe's wedding was a spectacle. Luxury vineyard estate, imported florals, a harpist flown in from Italy. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a performance. And everyone knew their role. Everyone except me. The invitation came late, almost like an afterthought. Thick ivory paper with gold-embossed calligraphy. Ms. Brielle Hartman, ceremony and reception. No bridal party invite. No toast. Just attendance. I almost didn't go. But something in me whispered, you need to be seen. Not for them. For you. I arrived alone, dressed in a sleek navy gown that didn't scream for attention, but demanded it anyway. As I walked past rows of polished guests sipping champagne, I caught pieces of conversation. Is that Brielle? She's the one from the podcast, right? I heard she rebranded the whole company. Her firm's blowing up. They didn't say Chloe's sister. They said Brielle. On my own terms. My parents greeted me cautiously. My father extended a hand. I shook it. You look well, he said stiffly. Success suits me, I replied. Chloe approached in full bridal glamour, flawless, poised, practiced. But her smile wavered for half a second when she saw how many people's heads turned in my direction. Glad you made it, she said, air kissing my cheek. Wouldn't miss it, I answered with just enough ice. The ceremony began. It was beautiful, yes, but hollow in a way only people-pleasing events can be. Speeches about perfection, curated love, ambition wrapped in designer labels. Nothing messy. Nothing real. Until it was my turn to speak. No, I wasn't asked. But when the best man fumbled through a last-minute toast and the mic lingered unattended, one of Chloe's college friends nudged me. You should say something. You're the sister. The room turned. The silence deepened. I stood, walked to the front, took the mic. And for a brief moment, I considered kindness. Then I chose honesty laced in grace. Families are complicated. Sometimes they see you only when you're shining in ways they understand. But the real glow-up, it's choosing to shine anyway, even in the dark. No names, no blame, but everyone understood. Especially Chloe, especially my parents, especially me. I placed the mic down and walked out onto the patio, where I could breathe again. And as the music swelled behind me, I realized I didn't need to belong at their table anymore, because I'd become the woman whose story people stood up to hear. 6 months after the wedding, I received an offer from a national venture group. They wanted to acquire June Bright Studio. 7 figures. Full creative control would remain mine. Equity. Platform. Power. And all I could think was, this is what they said I'd never build. I didn't say yes immediately. Instead, I invited the investor team to tour my new headquarters, a renovated warehouse downtown, just blocks from the very country club where my father once told a colleague I wasn't built for business. They walked through sun-drenched halls filled with design teams, strategy meetings, and walls covered in client success stories. The final room held my vision board. At the center, a quote I'd printed years ago. The ones they ignore become the ones they can't afford to. They nodded in approval. That evening, I signed the deal. And then I made one more call to a young designer I'd mentored. Her name was Anika. Ambitious. Fearless. A version of me I wish someone had believed in sooner. Ready to take the lead? I asked. She cried. I smiled. June Bright would go on, just not through me. Because I had bigger plans. The next morning, a city newsletter ran a headline. Former outsider launches women's venture fund. Brielle Hartman to invest in voices that once went unheard. My mother texted, "Proud of you." Truly. I replied, "Thank you." Not for her sake. For mine. And as I stood on the balcony of my own building, watching the morning light stretch across the skyline, I let it all settle in. They had once laughed at my ambition, dismissed my ideas, erased my presence. Now, their legacies depended on my signature. Not out of vengeance, out of vision. And I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't proving them wrong. It was proving myself right. On my own terms. Always.